He's doing a lot of chromatic slides. Oh man, I love it. I never ever tried to play his solos because his phrasing, it's crazy. Also, the same with John Scofield. I'm so intimidated sometimes that I don't even start. So welcome back, dear Patreons. Today I'm going to talk about the tune Alone Together, and the video is going to be divided in two parts. One part is going to be an analysis of this tune and what can we play over it, and the second part is going to be Jim Hall's solo on this beautiful tune. And please check out his recording Alone Together with Ron Carter. It's a live recording and they're playing a duo bass and guitar, which is very interesting. And I'm going to have a look at his solo on Alone Together. I already checked it out a little bit, just talking about the stuff that he's doing that is very inspiring as well, because I think improvisation is very often about getting new ideas, changing the perspective a little bit. But let's start with the tune Alone Together. I want to explain a little bit about minor and major before I get started, because it's so interesting. When we're talking about a major scale, it's very clear that there's only one major scale, right? But if you're talking about like a minor scale, we have a lot of choices, right? We have the Aeolian scale, we have the Dorian scale, we have the harmonic minor scale, and we have the melodic minor scale. And if you have a look at those four scales, it's very interesting that the first 5 notes always stay the same. So if you would be thinking about D minor, it's always, you always have a root, then you always have a second, right? You always have a minor third, of course, and a 4 and a 5. And those 5 notes are non-negotiable. But then the rest of the notes that you can possibly play on a minor chord are like a lot of choices. So you can play the B flat, a flat 6, a normal 6, you can play a flat 7, and you can play a major 7. So if you think about it like this, that's kind of interesting. And it depends. With minor it can get quite complicated because it depends on the context that you'll find in which you'll find a minor chord, right? But I'm trying to keep it simple today because the prevalent chord progression that we have here in Alone Together is a 2-5-1. And then the minor chord, the one chord D minor, is our tonic, right? It's very much like a 2-5-1 in major, except the chord progression is going to minor. And also the chord on the second degree is most of the time half diminished. And the chord on the fifth degree is also a dominant seventh chord, but it's an altered dominant seventh chord most of the time, right? And then we have that minor chord. So let's start with the D minor chord. So I guess my favorite choice would be to play like a D melodic minor scale. And then on the half diminished chord, it depends how fast the chord progression moves. If it's moving very fast, I'm ignoring the E half diminished. So maybe in this place, and I would play probably the altered scale on the A7. And also another shortcut is, of course, you can play the D harmonic minor scale on all three of those chords. So if we have a look at the tune, it's quite interesting. You can think it starts in D minor, right? But then we have another 2-5 in minor going to G minor. And if you think about it, D minor and G minor, right? It's like G minor could be the 4 chord in D minor, and G minor, right? Very much as in a minor blues, but be careful, and that's something where I always stumble across, is in this case, you have the G minor in bar 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and not in bar 5, where it would occur in a minor blues. So be careful that you really hear when that starts. I often messed that up. But that's basically how you can think about the first 8 bars. You have 6 bars of D minor and 2 bars of G minor. And if you would like to analyze it with like in a functional way, with like degrees, the way that I learned it is from the point of view of the major key. So the D minor would be on the 6th degree and the G minor would be on the 2nd degree of the F major key. And the A7, of course, it would be a secondary dominant, right? Going to the 6th chord, and the D7 would be a secondary dominant going to the 2 chord. But don't be afraid. You actually don't have to understand or know that. It's enough if you just really try to play those 2-5-1s in minor. Maybe skip the half diminished chord for a moment and yes, just try to play over those chords. You could also be playing the D minor pentatonic over all 6 bars, right? This B minor 7, E7 is actually a pretty tricky thing that is occurring here, and I'm not going to talk about that today because the video is going to explode if I'm going to do that. But just let's say it stems from an F diminished chord going to the F, the same thing as in Stella by Starlight, the B flat diminished chord in the first bar. It's the same thing that's happening here, but you don't need to recognize that. Just play your Dorian scale, right? Going to the F and then 2-5-1 in minor, but going to the major chord. And that's probably the coolest part of this song. You can also play like a Lydian sound here. And if you just remember those 2 things, that it's first of all you're having a tonic that is minor, and then you have a tonic that is major, right? We already did talk about that in the video about On Green Dolphin Street, and see it happens quite often. And the other thing is just to remember that it's sort of a blues in the beginning, but with a very late 4 minor chord, right? To the B part, we have the A half diminished. So it's a long stretch of A half diminished, and I like to play C melodic minor. And then D right, that would be E flat melodic minor, and back to G minor, our fourth minor degree. You can play the G melodic minor scale. And then again, it's like a 2-5 in minor, right? We could expect a minor chord, but it's going to F major. Also, there are lots of tunes where that happens, that sort of like thinking it's going to minor, but it's not happening, right? You have like a 2-5, half diminished, altered chord going to a major chord, like in I Love You. What is the thing called love? It's a device that is used very often. And then it goes back to the last A part, and then we have an interesting thing in the last 4 bars. And instead of playing E half diminished A7, they're playing like a B flat 7 A7. And that's very common, that the half diminished chord is replaced with a dominant 7th chord. So if you're thinking about a blues in C minor, then the last 4 bars you would have A7, G7 going to C minor, right? That's also a replacement of D half diminished, G7 going to C minor. And think about this option, because it's really cool and a great device for harmonizing a melody. So I really sometimes would rather play this version with the B flat. And then on the B flat, I would play like B flat mix a Lydian sharp 11. Yes, so, and the last thing that I want to say about the tune, you have to be careful with the harmonic rhythm. So the harmonic rhythm is how quickly the chords change, but also where is the resolution. And like I said in the beginning, the G minor is in bar 7, that's already a little bit tricky, but the other thing is that the A part has 2 extra bars. So right, it's 3 times 4 bars, that's like 12 bars, but then we have plus 2, then we have 14 bars. And it makes a difference because most of the music is in like 4 bars, 8 bars, 16 bars phrases, or at least that's what is feeling natural to us. But the moment we leave that formula, we have to be careful, especially in the repetitions, because the first chord won't feel the same. So that's a strange thing maybe to understand in the beginning, but chords can feel very different if they appear in other parts of a song, if they are in bar 3 or in bar 1, or if there are 2 extra bars. Just like try to feel it. And a good way to feel it is like to play a tune in quarter notes, for example, and play 5 choruses of that, and you can really feel it then. So he starts with a motive, right? I love that if people like play sort of sequences that they transport through the changes, right? So he's playing. Yeah, sorry. So I have an inkling that he's playing a lot of stuff on 1 string or 2 strings, and he starts on the D minor with like 11 and flat 3rd. And then again on the D minor, 9 and the root. And here he changes it a little bit. So he has a major 3rd here at the end, but he keeps the motive intact, right? And then last but not least. And what I get from that is that he's playing those whole tone steps. Yeah. So this is an idea that you could use like starting your solo with a whole tone step and trying to play two notes a whole tone apart. So this is already something I completely love, and he's also really always looking for like color notes on the notes, the D minor, the 11 and the minor third, or here the 9, or you could play the on the A7 the sharp 11, flat 9, sharp 9, Entschuldigung. Entschuldigung. So he's doing a lot of chromatic slides. Oh man, I love it. I never ever tried to play his solos because his phrasing, it's crazy. Also, the same with John Scofield. I'm so intimidated sometimes that I don't even start. But I guess it's so alright. Just take something, right? Just take something that you can play. Because there's a part in the solo later on that kept me from ever looking at it. I'll show you in a sec. But let's hear a little bit more. I know. Yeah, so he's sort of playing a very chromatic line, and that's something he's doing again and again in the solo. So if you want to train this movement 4-3-2-1, right? This solo is perfect for that. He's playing that all the time. And this, what he's playing here, he starts that on the D7, right? We have D minor, and then it's going to the G minor, right? And I think he's also not thinking about the A half diminished, but only thinking about D7 and starting on the E flat, right? What's that? That's the flat 9. And he's ending on the flat 7. It's perfect, right? You could play it here as well. On the D7, and then starting on the 5, ending on the major third. What a great toy to play with. Then there's another place in bar like 19. So this is the transcription from Miguel Mateo. You can buy it online for like €2 euros. And then again, he's playing on the same spot when the A part repeats, right? A half diminished, D7 going to G minor. He's playing a ascending chromatic line. To the A, in this case, to the flat 5 of the A half diminished or the flat 9 of the D7. However you want to think about it, I would rather think D7. He's playing some wide intervals. But then again you can think like an embellishment. So it just adds to so much movement. And this sequence, the next one in bar 21 on G minor. This is very interesting because I think he is thinking G melodic minor on the G minor chord, right? But then you can try to understand it like, this is like an A, and then you play from above and from below, diatonically in the scale. Next. But then on one string, right? hope this video was helpful, and I'll be back with a new one this week. And yeah, just let me know what you want to hear and keep on practicing, and let me know what interests you in a theorem. Bye.